afternoon and thank you for joining us on Future TV. I'm Linda Tamim and these are today's top stories. Lebanon marks the one-year anniversary of ISF intelligence branch chief Wissam Hassan's assassination. Lebanese officials expressed relief over the near return of the 9 Lebanese pilgrims kidnapped in Syria's Azaz. And UN Special Envoy to Syria, Lakhdar Brahimi, kicks off a regional tour to prepare for peace talks on Syria. Interior Minister Marwan Shalbel has praised the life achievements of ISF Intelligence Branch Chief Wissam al-Hassan during a ceremony held at the ISF headquarters in Beirut to mark the one-year anniversary of his assassination. Shalbel said no assassination can stop or impede the work of the ISF, whose mission is to protect all Lebanese regardless of religion and sect. Future Bloc MP Fuad Sanyura says Hassan's comrades in arms will continue to unveil perpetrators. Lebanese officials have expressed relief over the near return of the 9 Lebanese pilgrims who were kidnapped by rebels in Syria last year. The release came last night, a day after Qatar vowed to intervene to bring the case of the pilgrims to a safe conclusion. Officials in Lebanon and Turkey say they were released in a deal that could also see the 2 Turkish pilots who were abducted in Lebanon walk free. Former Prime Minister Saad Hariri and Speaker Nabih Berri congratulated the 9 men and their relatives and thanked the state of Qatar for following up on the case and mediating. Hariri voiced hope the release of the Lebanese will lead to ending the suffering of a lot of prisoners and hostages. Prime Minister-designate Tamam Slam praised the efforts exerted by General Security Chief Major General Abbas Ibrahim, who traveled to Damascus to discuss a prisoner exchange deal to free the group, who is expected to arrive to Lebanon within 24 hours. Sixteen Syrian soldiers have been killed after a suicide car bombing outside a pro-regime suburb of Damascus and clashes that followed. State media blamed the early morning blast at the entrance of the mixed Trishkin Druze suburb of Jaramana on terrorists, the regime term for rebels. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights says a suicide bomber from the Al-Qaeda-linked Nusra Front detonated an explosives-packed car at the checkpoint between Jaramana and the rebel-held area of Mleha. Residents say the intensity of fighting was unprecedented since the conflict erupted in March of 2011. Meanwhile, the United States say children are starving to death in besieged residential areas of the capital and are demanding that the regime allow aid convoys to reach trapped civilians. UN Special Envoy to Syria, Lakhdar Brahimi, is to visit Egypt as he kicks off a regional tour to prepare for peace talks on Syria, dubbed Geneva II. Brahimi will meet Egypt's Foreign Minister Nabil Fahmy, as well as the Arab League Secretary General Nabil al-Arabi. His tour will cover several countries in the region, including Syria and Iran. Sources say the meeting is likely to take place in the second half of November. Prospects for the Geneva II conference remain unclear, with the Syrian opposition divided and due to vote next week on whether to take part or not. Separately, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry will head to Europe next week for talks on Syria. He and other envoys from the Friends of Syria group will meet the Syrian opposition in Britain on Tuesday to review progress towards convening the conference. Coming up next, an exclusive interview for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Stay with us. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and our very own Yumna Naufal talks to Dr. Labibi Ghalmihi about what women need to know. On to you, Yumna.
Thank you, Linda. Yes, every 69 seconds, somewhere in the world, someone dies from breast cancer. It is the most prevalent cancer among women today. Women at high risk for breast cancer may choose to undergo active surveillance and get tested regularly. But another option is to remove both breasts, a procedure called a double mastectomy, which can reduce the risk of developing breast cancer by approximately 90%. In our studios today to discuss this further, we have the pleasure to welcome Dr. Labibi Ghalmihi. Dr. Ghalmihi, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You know, the double mastectomy really took light when Angelina Jolie published an article back in May saying she had both her breasts removed because she took a test that revealed she had the infamous, and tell me if I'm pronouncing this right, BRCA1 gene mutation, which gave her an 87% of getting the cancer.
I think what happened was really a good and a bad thing at the same time. I mean, you know, when a celebrity does something, people would follow. What Angelina Jolie did is basically she found out she has the BRCA gene, and she went all the way to remove her both breasts, which is a way to do it, but really it's a bit, aggressive. We don't like people to do this.
Her mother had breast cancer.
Yes, her mother and her aunt too had ovarian cancer. Breast and ovarian are related. So we're not telling people to, go all this way to do what Angelina Jolie did, but they should know at least their history, their family history, go get tested. And now, October is the Breast Awareness Month, but every month of the year should be an awareness month for breast cancer. So,
how accurate are these tests? The gene tests that everybody is taking.
Actually, most of the breast cancers, and for people to know, are not related to BRCA. It's only maybe 5 to 8% are related to the BRCA genes. The rest are not. They could be genetic, but they're not related to this gene. The gene is, quite accurate when you get tested, but every person has a different mutation. Every race has a different type of mutation. For example, in the United States, the mutations are different than the Lebanese woman. And fortunately now there are scientists in Lebanon working on trying to find what are the most common mutations or,
so
problems in this
if
gene.
a woman comes to you today and says, I have an aunt or a sister or a mother with breast cancer, I want to take the gene test and see what the results are, would you recommend she does? I mean, these are expensive tests,
yes,
we know, and then there's, of course, the findings and the consequences of finding out.
Well, the best thing to do is to test the person who had the breast cancer, test their genetic makeup and know where the mutation is, and then look for this specific mutation in the other, daughters or siblings or whoever, because it will be much cheaper. But not everybody that has a family history of breast cancer means they have the BRCA gene. It has to be somebody who had it really at a young age, in their 40s and their 30s. Not, if her grandmother had it at 60, it doesn't mean she needs to be tested for BRCA.
Right. Moving on from BRCA, early detection is what everybody talks about and how important that is in tracking breast cancer.
That's the message we want, people to know. And I think the Ministry of Health in Lebanon has done a great job, in the last few years, letting people know that, mammographies are there. Early detection really does make a difference. We know we have scientific evidence that early detection does decrease the mortality from breast cancer. We know this especially after the age of 50. Between 40 and 50, really, the studies are kind of mixed, and it depends on what country you're talking about. But in Lebanon, 50% of breast cancer are in women less than the age of 50. So really, we have to start at the age of 40 to do
mammograms, to do specific mammograms.
Yes.
I want to talk about something that's been taking more light today, is that we are seeing more and more women who are younger get breast cancer. We're talking as early as 20s and 30s, and according to what I've read, the breast cancer, is usually more aggressive when you're in your 20s and 30s. Why are women getting it younger?
Honestly, we don't have, answers. But, yesterday I was reading an article from the WHO saying, lung cancer and other types of cancer are increasing because of environmental toxins. So maybe breast cancer has to do with this. Of course, using birth control pills, hormone replacement, all of this increases your chances. Our lifestyle, obesity is much more common nowadays. Smoking, drinking alcohol, all this has, increased. In Lebanon and in the world, but actually...
Can you just tell me why the breast cancer is more aggressive when you're in your 20s and 30s? I know it's because the tissue of the breast is thicker and it's harder to detect it. Am I right?
We really don't know why it is aggressive, but, catching it sometimes, we catch a little bit later because women will come and, tell us, I have a breast lump, I'm feeling weird, there's pain under my armpit.
How important is it to have your own examination?
I think it's very important, to teach young girls to start, knowing yourself, like knowing your family history, asking your mom, your grandmother, was there anybody had breast cancer, and know your own body. Usually,
you check for your breast about a week after your premenstrual.
Yes, it's better to check it after your period because the breast tissue will be, less dense, and you could,
and we have
won't be
pictures.
painful too.
We have pictures to show exactly how that's done. Also, if you feel anything. What is it that we can feel? How does it work usually?
Well, the breast is a gland, basically. There's a lot of glandular tissue, so you could feel small lumps under your fingers, but if you know that these are there and they're normal, anything that's abnormal, if there's a change in the skin, if the nipple, is inverted, goes inside, if, you feel something unusual, please go and, ask your family doctor, your gynecologist, anybody. Any physician can help with this, and then they can refer you to people that do, breast cancer or breast health in this country.
Treatment is, if you find out about it early enough, the treatment is usually the typical, chemotherapy, radiation, even surgery these days.
Yes.
And do a lot of women have breast cancer in Lebanon?
Well, from the statistics we have, yes, it has been increasing. Looking at, world numbers, in the 90s to the 2000s, it was increasing. But then it's been stable all over the world, except in Lebanon. We're seeing it more and more because I think people are getting the mammographies more, and we're detecting these early breast cancers.
Mammographies after the age of 40? Would you recommend it before 40?
I would not recommend this before 40 unless the woman has a lifetime risk of breast cancer, let's say more than 15 or 20%. And this can be calculated when you go to your physician, you tell him, or tell her, my mom had breast cancer, I took birth control pill, I have no kids, I didn't breastfeed my all this.
Right, and I know we had met earlier, you and I, and we spoke about how important it was for women to breastfeed because that actually decreases the chances of breast cancer. Yes. Am I correct?
It helps tremendously decrease the breast cancer incidence, as well as, of course, all the benefits. We know we can talk hours about breastfeeding, but breastfeeding does decrease your chance. So what I was saying is you stratify women into groups: low risk, moderate risk, and high risk. High risk women need to be screened earlier.
High risk if your family or somebody in the family has it, if you're on birth control pills, or if you haven't.
There are several parameters where you can plug them into a model.
And you can go to your gynecologist.
Yes, and he will do this, and he will tell you your lifetime risk is, let's say, 20%. Okay. This model is not great, but it helps us at least know who should get the mammographies early on.
Whenever we're talking about breast cancer, and this is all over the place, whether it's breast cancer or exercise, or everybody recommends a healthy lifestyle, we have to go through it. Can you tell us what is recommended that could possibly reduce the risks of breast cancer?
It's logical.
Right.
Avoid tobacco, avoid nicotine, and all the problems with it.
Any specific foods? Obesity, I was reading soy. I was reading salmon. I was
recently
reading
there was
greens.
a study about peanut butter, decreasing the risk of breast cancer. So I think there are things that will once you have more fat in your body, you have more estrogen. And estrogen is probably one of the culprits for breast cancer. So decreasing fat in your body will decrease probably your risk of breast cancer. Exercising, will help, the tissues perfuse better. It's just living a healthy lifestyle without, using too many, let's say, detergents or, stuff that can affect your breast.
Right, they say a lot of...
And examine yourself, know yourself well, see your physician every year. After 40, start doing, mammographies earlier if you are somebody who is high risk.
Okay. Anything else we can take away from today's session from a gynecologist, and now having you here, let's take advantage of it.
And I think, the message I want to tell, people is, go see your gynecologist or your physician or your family doctor early on. Even if you're, 20, 19, you can just sit down, talk about, strategies, how to, prevent this breast cancer or any type of cancer that, women are prone to. Of course, know yourself well.
Your family
history is extremely important. The Ministry of Health is offering free mammographies in the governmental hospitals. So I think people should take advantage of this and
especially
go get tested.
Especially now in Lebanon, because they're
women
increasing...
hate the mammography. I know, they keep telling me it's painful, they're going to squeeze their breast and it's uncomfortable. Nowadays the mammographies are less painful. The pain or the discomfort is only for maybe a minute or two, but it will save lives for sure, and it will save families from losing their mothers or their daughters or their sisters. So that's the message I want people to.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
That was Dr. Labib Ghulmiya to talk about Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Back to you, Linda.
Thank you, Yumna, for very useful information. And on that note, we end our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our headlines. Lebanon marks the one-year anniversary of ISF intelligence branch chief Wissam Hassan's assassination. Lebanese officials expressed relief over the near return of the 9 Lebanese pilgrims kidnapped in Syria's Azaz. Finally, UN Special Envoy to Syria, Lakhdar Brahimi, kicks off a regional tour to prepare for peace talks on Syria. Those are today's headlines from Future Television. Live in Beirut, I'm Linda Tamim, wishing you all a very nice weekend.